I told you guys that I wanted to do the best I could in 2025. And to do that, I actually got myself a coach. So Mr. Brian Storrie is out here with me today. But if you guys don't know, the guy's been to the ISDE like 18 different times, multi-time gold medalist at the ISDE. He's in the TSAC Hall of Fame for enduros, for all kinds of things. I have to ask, what are we gonna get into today?
We're going to get into the idiot's guide for how to set up your new motorcycle for you and how to make you, which I know it's going to be a challenging environment, but how to make you work well with your new motorcycles, with your technique, and making sure the controls on the bike and the balance of the bike work good for you.
I love it. All right, well, let us get started with that.
Step one, when you get a new motorcycle, don't think that whatever bars you had on the last bike or last chassis, whatever shock spring you had, don't assume. Just don't assume, okay? It makes assholes out of all of us. The first thing you can do if you don't know, if you don't have a reputable guide for a spring chart, is set your race sag and then measure your free sag. That way we can do the math and see if the shock spring is right for you. If it is right for you, then you can assume the fork springs are probably right too. If it's wrong, you can truly assume they're both wrong, and then you need professional help. That's first step. Let's get after that. We're nice and straight up and down. I got a Sharpie mark on here. I'm zeroed out on my gauge. You can use slackers. They're super awesome, but I'm using this because I figure more people have a standard tool at this point still. Now, we also have a piece of ground that's flat, okay? So it's not, it's always important. Little differences in the ground can make a big difference in your sag in the end. So if the front end's literally sitting an inch higher, it's gonna throw this number off, okay? It's gonna throw this number off. But anyway, so we're gonna whip it down.
Can I whip it out?
Not until I'm gone. I want you to sit, you know, in the position you would sit in your normal happy spot, okay? I want you to put your left foot on this stand and your right foot on the peg, okay? And sit in your normal happy spot, where you would drop and sit to go around a turn, ride through a section. Is that your happy spot?
It feels happy.
Okay,
making me feel happy.
We're gonna settle the bike now. You're gonna hold the front brake. I'm gonna compress the front, let it up real slow. Do the same thing here on the back. And now we have the true settled position of the motorcycle where you really ride the bike. If this is where you do the majority of your riding, this is where I want to set your sag at, okay? Otherwise, we're lying to your motorcycle about where you're gonna ride. Thankfully, the marks are just big enough without my readers. I got 104 exactly. And that is a great place to start. One thing people need to remember about sag is that when people say, okay, the sag should be 105 on this bike, that's the happy, safe middle spot. You can easily go a little less sag, a little more sag, whatever works for you personally, because no two guys are the same, and the areas that people are riding are greatly different. If you're on a tight, twisty enduro track, you might be better off at 100 millimeters of sag, so you're putting more weight on the front tire,
because
being able to be able to follow the ruts better, have better grip at the front wheel in those slow, slick turns. Whereas if you're on the West Coast, you might like 108 better because you're trucking through 4th and 5th gear sand loops. Okay, so just remember that that's not a hard and fast rule when they say 105 or 102 or
it's a
whatever.
Good starting spot.
That's a starting spot, and then you got to see what works for you.
Cool.
Yeah. Front settled, rear settled. Got it. And then we'll come over here, see where we're at, and I've got. Looks like I got 41, okay? And so that's pretty darn good. Well, whenever I'm testing and I'm trying different sags, so I'm trying different ride heights, just like I put a mark on the rear fender, I'm gonna put a mark on the sag collar, okay? So I'm gonna mark it as well, okay? And I usually mark both sides of the spring in a spot, so I'll know when I've made a full turn versus a half turn. But a lot of people just put it on there and they start and they crank to get to whatever number they've been told they're supposed to be at. Screw that, okay? Get in the ballpark like we talked about, get to the safe number, and then add around and go test. You say, wow, holy crap, does that work better for me? Okay, if it doesn't, the bike wiggles all of a sudden now. Okay, go back to the safe number, go back a full round, okay? You don't need to measure every time. Each round, if you have the right spring on it, is about a 3 millimeter difference. That's enough where you can feel it on bike and actually feel what works best for you. So I just marked it. I've already got it loosened off. Now I'm gonna go grab tools and move it. But anyway. There we go. So we know we got one full round.
You know what I like about what I just saw you doing? is how you use the frame as a lever point to turn instead of sticking a screwdriver into that and banging it with a hammer.
Yeah, I wouldn't beating it to shit and tearing it up. Weird, huh? Almost like I'd done it before. So now we'll just tighten it back down, which with the the non-perfect tool here, but that's okay. It's close enough for seat time, right?
Yeah.
Ta-da! And don't over tighten that crap and make your life difficult.
We have got the sag set, but Brian Storrie got many more pieces of advice for us. So Brian, what is going to be next for us to talk about?
Next is going to be your basic controls. Most of these bikes put together at dealerships, the guy who's putting the bars on, putting the levers on, he probably doesn't exactly know where they should be for you.
He doesn't have my small baby hands?
Yeah,
right.
He's got lots of bigger parts than you probably. Basic first place to start would be having your bars at the 0 line. This one makes me feel warm and fuzzy because it has a Mako 360 on it. And if you haven't tried one, I am a believer. So they are pretty darn awesome. But at the 0 line, that's perfect. That's the greatest place to start, okay? Because you don't know. And like I said, you can't put bars on from your old bike until if it's a new chassis, you've got to try whatever it comes with. So center your hands so they're not up against the donuts. Reach out with your fingers that are designed to do the levers. These should always be holding onto the bar. These are for levers. And make sure that your hands grab the lever in the pocket of the lever, okay? You want it to grab right there where you have lots of leverage. If you're grabbing it here on the knuckle, what will happen when you're riding is you will naturally move your hand out so that your fingers still grab in the proper spot. So it's super important to move the levers in and out until you get that perfect spot to grab. I've had a lot of riders I've worked with that have super struggled to get their bike to follow a rut, and I find out that they always end up leaning to one side in the rut. And then I simply look at their bars and they'll have their clutch lever shifted so far out that as soon as they take off riding, they shift their hand out. So now they're not symmetrical anymore. One hand is further out on the bar and has more leverage over the front end than his other hand does because his front brake lever is not pushed that far out. Don't be that guy. That's a dumb reason to be falling over to the left in every rut. Other thing to think about with levers is your height, okay? Some people swear up and down they want them out here flat. Some people want them really low. Okay, those are great scenarios if you only ride standing up or sitting down. If you ride like you're supposed to, and you stand at times, if your levers are too high, your wrists are too far bent, and you can't operate them when you're leaning over the front. If your levers are too low, then you can't operate them when you're sitting in the proper position. It makes you over-rotate. So it's important to have a neutral lever position. Same thing. Start with neutral and you can adjust a little bit to see what works best for you.
The one thing that I have been noticing that I've been having trouble setting up the rear brake is that it feels a little bit squishy. So let's dig into that pedal and the way that it's set up and tell me what you think, okay?
Okay, let's take a look. Brake pedal, and it's great to look at it on a center stand when the bike is level, okay? And you also have to think about who you are as a rider, okay? If you're Josh Toth and you're standing up 99% of the time, then you frankly need your brake pedal fairly high, okay? Because the way he's standing, he needs to be able to control it, especially when he leans back. If you're like most enduro or off-road guys that grew up in the tight woods and you sit way forward and you're over the front end, so you've got grip at the front wheel, you need to have your brake pedal pretty low or you're not going to be able to physically get your foot to tilt up on it and use it. You won't even be able to physically get your foot to it without taking your foot off the peg. I see a lot of riders when I'm testing and training that literally are lifting their foot off the peg when they use the rear brake. You don't want to do that. Your boot, your leg is heavy, especially when it's bouncing through bumps, and it turns this thing into an on-off switch. You want to be able to keep the weight of your boot on the peg and be able to just control the brake pedal. You don't want it to be an on-off switch.
What are your quick thoughts on what we should do to adjust for me?
It's important for me to get out there with you, watch your technique, see how much you're standing versus sitting, see what works best for you. Right now, just looking at it, I'm thinking we're probably going to want to lower it a little bit just to give you a little bit more control so that you can drag it without locking it. Yeah, if I have to touch you.
the 2 times that I stalled was in the same spot. I didn't know what gear I was in, and I was trying to like think about what gear I was in. Didn't pull the clutch in enough, and it's because it gets really fast. So I went up.
And you have to shut down hard to pull up out of the old trail.
Yep. 2 things though is I noticed that like I felt like this hand was sliding out.
Okay.
And like I was like on the edge of the, you know what I mean? Like I was just kind of thinking about levers. And then this one, so this is my nerve damaged shoulder, so it doesn't function great. It felt like I was like, you know what I mean? So it was like the opposite. Like
so you're not centered. If you're not willing to change and you're off of what the engineers and test riders designed, then the numbers that the test riders and magazines give you are wrong. You have to make adjustments for your weird seating position, your weird standing position, your off-center position you just talked about. We might seriously look at making a change to the bike about the fact that your upper body is off-center because you hold one shoulder in all the time. So we may actually try an experiment and try with a shift of controls because of that. We've all known for a long time you weren't very centered. But I didn't realize it was physical.
Go on.
So on our little test loop, I know you're going up the gears on the way back on our test loop, which we designed a test loop that had a little variety, some tight twisty stuff and some more flowy 3rd gear stuff to be very like a Texas Enduro. Do you feel like you're in the right gear in the slow stuff and the fast stuff? Are you having to shift a lot? Do you feel like you're in between gears? Where are you at?
So I took what you were telling me about figuring out, can you stay in the same gear, right? Like, is that something you can do? And I realize right now with the gearing, 2nd gear for me actually works really good for the tight stuff.
Okay.
And so what I did is in the fast open section, right when we take that first hard right, I'm like, okay, learn to open it up. So I've started getting into 3rd and trying to see if I get comfortable like really ripping it instead of going to 4th and just trying to stay in the middle of the revs.
Right.
And then as I get back into the trail, I'll click back into 2nd.
Okay.
And then here, as we open up, come in this direction, is where I'll get back into 3rd. But I have been playing go into 4th, but that's when I started screwing up that turn, because then again, now I'm like, wait, how many times do I need to downshift? Like,
yeah, I mean, the general thought is you want to cut out as many shifts as you can. You want to put your gears. It's the same thing. Magazines will say, oh, this bike needs a 51 on the back. Okay, well, it needs a 51 for whoever the majority of their test riders were. That didn't mean you're one of those guys. You got to figure out where the happy spot is for you, okay? So if the majority of your riding is in a section where you're having to shift back and forth from 2nd to 3rd all the time, then you either got to go up on the teeth on the rear or down. You've got to go one way or another so you can make it a 2nd gear all the time section or a 3rd gear all the time section. That'll cut out a lot of missed shifts, cut out a lot of stalling. Just, you know, move up and down until you find your happy spot, okay?
so now do we go try to move the levers over a little, or what do you want to do?
So, well, you said this one was shifting over and this one you felt like was shifting in?
Right, what it felt like is that I felt like I wound up, that I kept like, yeah, that I was like working my way to the outside with this one.
Okay,
more
like
than
where could you tell for sure you were getting your hand out here?
That I don't. What I was really noticing is how much I was on the edge of the ball.
On the ball of the lever.
The ball of the lever. Okay. And then this, I noticed that I was like, I could really because as my shoulder would like warm up and get tired, I could tell that I was just kind of like coming in more and more. And that's kind of like that I've noticed that like one of the things that I wanted to do on my was actually one day was to test this, was actually cut an inch off of a throttle tube and move it to the outside and see if it kept me more like on the outside, just because of the nerve damage. But I'm not doing that today.
That's odd. It makes it seem like your whole upper body is wanting to shift this way, you know, and because you feel like you're moving this hand out and this hand in. Well, we're going to perform an experiment on that in a minute, but first, the 2 changes that we've already made, how did you feel? Could you tell? Did they stick out to you? Was there a bad moment, or did you never notice them?
I almost think that I don't think that I noticed the fact that anything very much with the front. So in the sense of the adding some preload. Now I do think the rear brake feels better.
Okay.
But I don't know like if too much, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Let's do a lap time real quick. I expected this time, if we had made no changes, for you to be a little bit slower, because you started in a place that you would normally be carrying momentum, versus last time, and had to stop in that place, versus last time you started and stopped in a place where you were already going really slow to wiggle trees there. But anyway, you threw that theory completely out of the forest by killing your other time. Yeah, you killed the other time, so you knocked, I mean, if I rounded that up to a 48, you still knocked 6 seconds off of it.
I think it's one of those things where honestly I just carried speed really good.
Yeah.
And I think I've gotten more comfortable at the sections too, where to go fast. Like going, you know what I mean? Like,
okay. So you think part of it was you did learn the section better?
I think so.
A lot of times with suspension changes, if you don't feel it, if you don't ever have anything you feel that's bad, it typically means your setup is moving in the right direction, you know, especially if your times are dropping. His hand was riding far out, and so it's worth doing a test. We're going to move the lever position to see if we can get his hand in the right spot and see if that gives him more control.
So about 1/4 of an inch in?
About a 1/4 inch, yep. My angle is still, let me get straightened up here. Yep, my angle's still identical to the other side to keep symmetry there. All right, let's give it a shot.
Yeah. Did it feel like you didn't notice? No, like, and so I stopped and kind of brought the lever out one click because it still felt funky. You know what I mean? And I definitely noticed that there were times, this time trying to pay attention, like that my hand kind of kept floating out.
Did you ever end up grabbing the knuckle of the lever?
No. I don't think I ever wound up grabbing the knuckle.
So you weren't up against the ball this time.
As much,
and you weren't
yeah.
in the knuckle. When you're already in the ballpark and you're going the right direction, typically it won't stick out to you when you're riding. When you go the wrong way with a change, it will stick out to you instantly when you go the wrong way. And even though it's on your left arm, I believe this is related to your right shoulder injury. The fact that you don't put that right arm out as far. I think it's related to what we're doing over here.
Interesting.
Yeah, I really do. I want to make the same change to this side that we did to that one. Okay?
So we're gonna...
I want to pull it out just like we did to that one, okay? Out of the way. All right.
Okay, so this is like kind of just straight up and down.
Yeah. And when you're putting the throttle in place, just always bottom it out, pushing it in, and then pull it back out just hair. That way if you fall and it gets pushed a little bit, it doesn't make your throttle hang. Does that make sense?
Well, a lot of I have them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we move that.
Do you have your bars cut?
Nope.
I didn't measure, so, and your grips are, and you've got these end caps on there, so there was no way for me to tell.
Okay, that looks pretty good, huh?
Yep.
Super scientific.
Okay, just like 2 lap stops, you gotta be able to tell that in. Check your height, put your both hands on the bars. Does that feel right?
Yep.
Okay.
like that helped. Like I noticed a difference, like, and it makes me want to go further to just see.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like being that we're like right at that spot, and then I'm still stalling the bike, I like that this is here. If we take this and move it over here into this spot, it's gonna be harder to reach.
Yeah.
So I think right now, like, this might be something to come back to.
Okay.
But I think this helped. I'm gonna try to move it down just a little bit, and then actually go out one more. What's weird is even on those 2 laps, I felt like my forearm actually like pumped up a little bit more. So I'm like, am I just tired? Or, you know, is there just a little bit of all the things? Like,
should be loosening up more. That could be a bad sign.
So now that we've made this change, I definitely noticed that this arm's pumping up more, even though I brought it just a little bit further down. And now what I'm noticing is that as I feel it pump up, I feel that 3rd finger creeping in. Do you know what? Because like, it's just subconsciously like the power's not there in those 2 fingers. You know what I mean? So I feel like now, because it went that way, like the leverage ratio changed so much, or just enough to like get awkwardly.
I think that may be God's way of telling you that we need to go back to our original set.
Good news, it's right there.
But that's how you test. That's how you test. There's no wild thing that you shouldn't chase if you have time, you know? And it didn't take hardly any time to test that. It was worth it to test and learn, but anything that's gonna make your arm pump up quicker, you know, that's no good. We'll switch bikes. I just want to try yours for a couple laps before the sun gets too low, and then I can hop in and follow you after that.
Sweet.
Oh, I think the bike feels really good. I'm concerned that when you get into faster, bigger bumps, I think we might need to add some port compression. I think like South Carolina, you can get into some really big sand hits there. I think we're more than likely going to need to stiffen up your front end for that, but I know where to go to test for that also. That might happen in round 2 of testing.
Love it.
All the controls feel in the right place. We might be able to lower the brake pedal a little bit more still.
Okay.
Especially since you ride a lot like I do. You stay center forward when you're standing, and then you sit forward. You do a great job of sitting in the true, you know, attack position when you sit. So I think we could actually get away with going a little bit lower on the brake pedal still, and give you just a tiny bit more control on it. That might actually cut out some of your stallings, where I think you might get a little more rear brake than you're ready for before you've got the clutch all the way in.
Oh, okay. Could that be other riders as well, not just me?
Other riders as well, so I think we could put just a little bit more slack in your brake pedal and it might cure that a little bit.
Okay. How about this? Let's go make a quick brake adjustment. We'll ride it and make sure nothing's weird, and then we'll wrap up day 1.
Awesome. Just trying to beat the sunlight.
Yeah, I know. We don't have much time left. Well, let's do it. Let's adjust this thing and keep going.
There we go.
That was a couple hours of testing, of riding, of coaching. Brian Storrie, thank you for teaching me. I know that the comments are going to be littered with you guys making fun of me, and I'm going to be okay with that. But Brian, how do you think we did today?
I think we did good. You know, we were a little limited due to Mother Nature, but we set up a good little test track that was something we could really try some different things and really make sure we were in the right position with things and make sure you were in the right position. And no, I think we did good. I think we made a lot of progress in a very small amount of time.
Sweet. And then I'm going to make sure that Brian's contact information is in the description. It'll be on the article if you're looking at this on the website. But what is it that you're trying to do now? We know now that you're not really working in the shops that much anymore, right? Like, and you're trying to do more of this. But if somebody's kind of like, what is more of this? Like, what does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, I know you talked about in the beginning about my racer background, which I'm still always going to be a rider racer at heart. But I have been a WP certified technician for many years. I'm certified in a lot of things in our industry and for several suspension brands. But what I really like doing more than anything else is working with riders at the track or trails, whether it's motocross, enduro, cross country, enduro cross. I've got experience with all of it. I know how to make the bike work with all of it. I really enjoy watching the bike and working with the rider. I enjoy helping the rider make progress. I just really enjoy doing that. And I've done a lot of it in the past, but anyway, I get paid per day to go to the track with you guys. If anybody wants to go to the track and help let me help you get dialed in.
I like it, I like it.
I'd love to do it.
Or did you since you enjoy helping riders today, do you feel that you helped me, and did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it, and I helped the parts of you that can be helped.
I like it. We all know that I've got issues, but we're gonna run with it. Well, thanks, Brian. Guys, if we don't get a chance to see you on the trails, we'll see you on the internet. Enjoy getting sea time. We'll see you for the next one. Peace.